But let's close with this. This shouldn't be a long one. But it was announced this week the Undertaker is the first inductee to this year's class of the WWE Hall of Fame. So like let's start. Two-part question in this one. Do you think the Undertaker should be a class by himself? Not will he, because we know there's rumors that there's other people who will be added to this class, but if you're making the choice, is the Undertaker the only entrant this year?
Yes.
If I'm making the choice, yes. It's right after SmackDown. I had the crowd already sit through an entire show. Boom, one introduction, Undertaker, say his piece, absolutely deserving.
I'm going to say yes, and not for that reason. I feel like this is one where you could have multiple people come out and share stories of Taker leading into his own speech. You could have the Kane. You could have a
do we have to have Kane?
It obviously would have been Paul Bearer if he was still with us.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's so many guys that can come out and share stories about Taker. And then it just be him.
That's the only way we get Glenn in a mask anymore, so let's do it.
That's true. That's, you know what? That's accurate. That's accurate. But of course, that burnt piece of shit, his mouth and nose are uncovered. So
because there's shows
it's still counterproductive. Matt, so you say no?
No,
it should just be a normal class.
I don't think. To me, I don't think anyone. If we haven't done it yet, I don't think Undertaker stands out as
Andre was the only one, the first one,
and that's fine. I mean, that's posthumous. But to me, like
I don't
think anyone is. I think anyone's on that level.
Nobody. How is he not on the level? I mean, he's the only. He's like 20. He was 24-0 or whatever at WrestleMania. He was your go-to guy for everything throughout all of it.
Sure, I'm not saying that he's not deserving of like a higher stature, but to be the only person to enter for that year, like to put him on the level of Andre, I wouldn't do it. If people made the argument, I would say you were wrong. That's just.
So when you're talking about it, so
I'm a giant.
Mariano Rivera, only person to go in unanimous into the Hall of Fame, but like
also incorrect. Ken Griffey Jr. should have gone on.
Ripken should have went in unanimously. Like, let's be real here. Guy who plays in like 5,000 consecutive games probably should have been the first unanimous guy into the Hall of Fame. But when I circle back to it. If you're looking at people who realistically else could fit into this class, I don't necessarily know that there's anyone that you can't wait another year on. There's not anyone that's like, right now to get this guy into the Hall of Fame to get this guy's speech.
So when the time comes, do you think then that Cena should be in a class of his own?
Cena took his ball and went to Hollywood.
He is the only other wrestler that I think can have the argument to go in by himself, except for Mark from Texas.
To me, the reason that Mark from Texas gets this honor is because, like, I mean, in those troubled times of the 90s when WCW was kicking your ass and people were leaving and getting out and going over to WCW and people were losing their smile and going home. The only guy that was the constant, the only guy that never wavered was the Undertaker. He was your WrestleMania streak. He was Mr. Reliable for you forever. And you know, you have this 5-part documentary last year and Vince McMahon's crying on camera and these two guys are hugging each other backstage. And don't get me wrong, I know we've seen the clips of like the WWE 24s of WrestleMania where people come back from their match and they thank Vince and they hug Vince, but like I feel like there's something different with Vince McMahon and Mark from Texas.
There is, and if he does go in by himself, I won't say that's a mistake. I would be 100% fine with it if he did. I just don't think it's necessary. I would say that.
And my hope
Andre never had a formal like ceremony, a video package was shown on WWF Superstars saying that he was in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it was very different.
So like,
when
here's
he
your
got
video package Sunday morning on Superstars.
But too, and because my hope is that this is the last year of 2-night WrestleManias. So if you're doing it after SmackDown, one guy, have a couple of storytellers, have one formal inductee, which we'll get to in a second, and then have Mark from Texas, do his speech end of the night. Because so you're gonna do 8 to 10 SmackDown. Are you gonna do 2 hours of a Hall of Fame? I mean, that's a long time. That's a long time when you're asking for the next 2 nights to be sitting at
how many people sit and watch the Hall of Fame induction anyway when it's by itself? Like, I didn't, honestly.
But I'm talking about the people that are there, though.
Oh, they can fucking leave.
Think about it from this standpoint. You're asking them to sit through SmackDown, Hall of Fame. Some of them to sit through NXT Stand and Deliver on Saturday afternoon. To
then Mania, then Raw after Mania.
I mean, people do that though. Like, you're not.
They do, but I don't. I've
done it.
Right. And
okay.
I think
I went and saw the Flyers lose and the Process 76ers lose the same night at the Wells Fargo Center. So it's not unheard of for people to sit through shit just because they're fans. Like, I don't think that's unheard of. No,
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that I've done the.
It is a big ask.
Here's three shows back to back on a Saturday, and then do a show Sunday morning, and then go to Mania on Sunday night. And by the time you get to that Sunday night, you're just like, wow, I feel like I just got hit by a ton of fucking bricks. And you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh shit, I still have Monday Night Raw to do tonight.
And here's the thing too: is for the Undertaker's induction,
it's a marathon for sure.
You want the crowd to be. You want the crowd to be like there and awake and engaged when the Undertaker has his big moment.
It's the same reason why I would hold off on anything after the Roman Reigns match unless it's The Rock. You've now had your fans sit through 4 hours on Friday.
Oh yeah, they're exhausted.
7 to 8 hours on Saturday and another 4 to 5 on Sunday. If you smell what The Rock is cooking coming on, let Roman just walk out with hold up the one finger, the 2 title belts. Let him walk out as champion and have Bray or whoever show up first segment Monday night. Let that opening segment of Monday Night Raw.
If it's not The Rock, they're not doing it after the main event on Sunday.
I agree with that.
I will double stamp that right now. You're not doing anything after Roman if it's not The Rock.
To steer back to the initial question. If you talk about the most popular people that have revolutionized professional wrestling in Hall of Fames, I don't know if Taker is really worthy when you realize Hogan was inducted with like 5 other people, and Ric Flair never had a class of his own. Is that because
Hogan's a dick?
I think so. I also think most of Hogan's class was tied to Hogan's career. It was Roddy Piper,
Bobby Heenan,
right? Sheik.
No, Jimmy Mouth of the South, Iron Sheik. So they all kind of really.
Hogan's Hall of Fame class.
Oh shit, Wonderful was in the same class. You're right.
People he's squashed to get to the top, or people who have like rode his coattails to a career. So basically, it's the Hulk Hogan.
Bob Orton, correct? It was building up to Hulk Hogan. And the only other one that's not in the Hall of Fame that would be worthy of a solo induction is Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I don't know if does Vince put himself in his Hall of Fame.
His dad's
Vince would probably be a posthumous induction.
Yeah, I was gonna say Vince is probably that one after he goes.
Yeah, which I don't think he goes in. Well,
I mean, we all made our Mount Rushmores in past episodes. Like when we all named the top 4 in our opinion, like does Undertaker stand above them? As he deserves it by himself. These other 3 did not or do not.
What I'm saying is he doesn't deserve it with Batista. That's what I'm trying to get to. All right, I'll just come out and say it.
There we go.
Batista's going in this year, isn't he?
I think Taker going in by himself is also a tip of the cap for him being there for 30 plus years.
Yeah, I think it's a
Rock and Austin, like, yes, they were more impactful in the short amount of time that they were there as everyday wrestlers than Undertaker was at any one of the same length of time. Like, if you take Austin's 97 through 99, you can compare any 2-year window of Undertaker, and obviously Austin has been more impactful.
Right. Austin short run, Rock relatively short run. Hogan went to WCW. You know,
that's what I'm saying. I mean,
but we brought up Cena earlier, and only Mike said that yes, I would do that. Everyone else said no.
Here's the thing: Cena, I think could, but I don't think they will.
I would say he's in the conversation. He's the only other person aside from.
He'd be the last person. He's the last huge star that could, but I don't think he does.
Because even and this is one, and this is how, like, Randy Orton should be the one that breaks Ric Flair's world title record. In my opinion, I think Randy Orton should get to 17. Randy Orton will not go in the Hall of Fame by himself, even though he'll end his career potentially with the most world title wins.
Right, and another strong company man.
Yeah, he would not get a class by himself because, like I said, Cena could, but I don't know if he has that same. And again, it comes back to that same relationship with Vince McMahon. I don't think he has that same relationship with. I don't think anybody has that same relationship.
I was going to say, I don't think anyone aside from Mark from Texas has that relationship.
No, I don't think. I don't think.
We're looking at 20
I don't think
years
Sean
now
McMahon has that same relationship with his dad.
I don't think years Hunter now for RKO. Like, are we putting him? Like, if that's what I'm saying, like if a lot of this is focusing on just loyalty, longevity, there's other people that have had loyalty and longevity too. And if we're not willing to say, then yes, they absolutely deserve their own class, then again, if they do it for Mark, then I have no problem with it at all. I just don't think it's a necessary thing that they have to do.
I think when I think about it, it's Randy as a headliner of a class. He's not I have to go in by myself guy.
Yeah, Randy's a headliner. Cena's a headliner.
Cena's a headliner / he can go in by himself. I just think that
and Mark is different. He is 100% different from those two. So I understand that we're talking apples and oranges with this, but I'm saying there's similarities that if we're not willing to say, like, what is specifically about Undertaker that we say he is different from John, from Randy, that he deserves this.
You basically
because John and Randy were here during the early 2000s when people just weren't watching, and they stuck through.
The spot that I come back to is that you had a pay-per-view that after he got to 10-0, it became a part of that event. It was who's fighting for the world title, who's fighting the Undertaker.
Right, he became synonymous with your biggest show. I think
with them running side by side, I think that's what puts him a step ahead of Orton and a step ahead of Cena. It was never, well, dang, who's John Cena fighting at the pay-per-view? Because John normally was either in the world title match or was the world champion. I think when you look at it from that perspective, Undertaker really never had the title. And when you go into Mania, it's like, damn, it's John Cena versus The Miz. And it's Undertaker versus Triple H.
Right.
It was always a built-in second main event.
All right, let's go around the room. If you're making the decision, who inducts the Undertaker? Ryan.
I was just looking through that, and I think the answer is Vince McMahon. We have not seen Vince McMahon induct anybody into the Hall of Fame since he inducted Donald Trump. So he's due for a good one.
He inducted Trump?
He inducted 3 wrestlers into the Hall of Fame. He inducted Donald Trump, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and long personal friend of his father, James Dudley. So he's only inducted 3 people. I think the
didn't-
right answer is Vincent McMahon.
He didn't induct his father.
No, Shane did.
Oh, that's right. He did. Shane who?
Shane McMahon. Matt,
Thanks.
who
Billy.
inducts Mark from Texas?
I'm going to choose the guy that inducted who would have been the inductor, which is Paul Bearer, and I'm going to say Kane. I think Kane inducting Paul Bearer makes sense that he induct the Undertaker, and to wash the Drew Carey stank out of his inductee.
That's
When
fair.
does Drew get into the?
Oh, so awful.
He's in, yeah. He was
He's in.
inducted.
Yeah,
he was
he's in.
inducted by Kane.
I think if Kane does induct him, he has to walk that thin blue line really carefully.
He also needs Mr. T to come out and cut his speech off.
Yeah.
Yes, that's perfect.
That's so
Intern
good.
Mark, who inducts Mark from Texas?
Well, if it was Paul Bearer was still with us, but he's not. So I'm thinking Vince. I think Vince would induct him.
All right. Devin says Mick Foley or Kane. Big Mike, who do you think should induct Mark from Texas?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Matt. I think Kane's the one that makes the most sense from an on-screen perspective. Their careers really were synonymous, especially most of Kane's career being Undertaker's brother and the Angle, and with Paul no longer being with us, I think the obvious slam dunk would have been Paul if he was still around.
Sure.
But unfortunately, with him being gone, we don't have that ability unless they decide to go holographic Paul, which if they put that in somehow
with one of his kids.
Don't put that bug in Vince's ear, Mike.
With one of his kids voicing him.
I think one
Holograms are hot this year.
Yeah, they are.
One final Undertaker go to the knee to reach for the urn, and holographic Paul Bearer is reaching the urn out is just a very cool sonata to end it. To end
I would cry.
Yeah, that would be
probably
fun.
would too.
That would be fun.
Even if they put just Paul up on the screen when he does it, you could do that.
So I think when it comes to it, I think Kane's the one that makes the most sense. I think Mick Foley's an interesting name if you're trying to go not Kane or Vince McMahon because of obviously their Hell in the Cell, but all the other matches that they had with each other were all fairly decent matches. But obviously that Hell in the Cell that night really made Mick's career, but also really made
It sure did.
Taker a true badass.
Yeah.
But that's something that if you want to go that route's an option. But I don't necessarily know how good of the graces of the WWE Mick Foley's really in right now. He's been very vocal on Twitter about things that he's not liking, so they may try to avoid him. I think the safe bet is Kane. I think Vince McMahon's a great option. I just want there to be some kind of homage to Paul during the speech or after the speech. And really odd, out of left field name that could potentially, if they want to go weird, is Brother Love.
Yeah, I've seen a couple people say
possible.
that. Have old Brucey get involved with the induction there. Definitely a little out
Speaking
there.
Speaking of Mick Foley, and on this day that was missed earlier, Ryan, Jim, and I were at the Harrisburg Comedy Zone 7 years ago on this day to see Mick Foley stand up.
That's right.
It was a great
Right
show.
there, stage right.
We were right on the.
Did you see all
the
three
edge.
guys that we've mentioned do something leading into Taker's speech?
I could, yeah.
I think you could have a couple of memory stories, something.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think Austin would be
package.
included in that as well.
Yeah.
Another way to ensure that, but I don't know if they do that since they want to have the surprise angle of Steve. But he was
Devin. Unfortunately, I'll be at Mania, and I will
Devin,
not be
we might do something. We'll figure out.
Maybe.
We'll figure out Mania plans. And
I'll be in the Great State of Texas.
As was one final name, could it be Michelle from Texas?
I mean, it could be, but I doubt it.
Pass.
There's
hope not.
There's three.
And I really
names
only
in
thought
this.
that after Big Mac
There's-
said about the other 3 people come in, if Michelle does the actual induction, we could have these other guys come out and say their bits,
I think
And then she'd be
Michelle
like,
could come
my
out.
husband.
Yes, Devil.
So in order of least important to most important, I could easily see it being, if they want to be safe, they could do AJ Styles as the person who had the Undertaker's last match. It could be, as a representative of the McMahon family, it could be Triple H.
Stephanie, while being still
could be
attached to the
Stephanie.
Undertaker's cross.
It could also be
A
the
near
heartbreak
ex-wife.
kid, Shawn Michaels.
He could.
Yeah.
But I think Michelle McCool walks the Undertaker to the podium because
Yeah.
there's always
Okay.
a diva.
I thought it was going to be Sunny, but that makes
And
sense.
because he might like.
Yeah, I don't think they're springing her bail for Mania weekend.
she might get out on good behavior, but not all the way to Texas.
Yeah, and then she'll be back in.
Do they make dresses long enough to cover her house arrest bracelet?
Oh, no, to keep it shot above the waist.
Yeah.
Higher.
Higher.
Please, from the neck up.
I think the answer is Vince. I think if you don't do the Last Ride documentary, then Kane, Mick Foley, any other names connected to the career of the Undertaker, I think you can make a case for. But I think you pulled the curtain up with that documentary, and you saw that you always knew there was like a loyalty and a relationship between those two. But when you pull the curtain and Vince, like, when was the last time you actually saw Vince McMahon like not able to talk about something? Like Vince McMahon is the forever will promote and talk and whatever. He couldn't talk about the Undertaker and the end of the Undertaker's career. I think it's a slam dunk. You can have other people tell stories, but I think your actual quote unquote.
Well, Vince was upset. Now he has to come up with fresh ideas for WrestleMania. That's
no, he doesn't. Well, he
For 30
doesn't.
years, he didn't have to worry about it.
But I think this one's easy. I think it's a Vince induction, and I think that makes it the most special. Whether you have other people inducted with him or not.